Oh! Oh! It's fucking done!
Yeah, so throwing a sandwich at an FBI agent never ends well for anyone. But I'm sure you've heard the news. There are a ton of federal agents and National Guard that are patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C.
I get a call or something right here?
No, so we're doing checks, keeping everybody safe down here, right? Have you heard of the federal surge that Donald Trump's putting out?
If you are unaware, this is quite literally a 30-day federal surge, and we have already seen up to 100 arrests in Washington, D.C. And of course, we are already seeing some chaos, and some people are not fans of what's happening in Washington, D.C. So before we start the video, make sure to please like this video. It's the #1 way you guys are helping this channel, but it also helps others see the videos as well, and I think people want to see what's going on in D.C.
D.C.'s mayor countered with new crime data showing violent crime has dropped 26% from this time last year, with homicides and robberies down too. But she acknowledged the president is within his rights to make these moves since D.C. is not a state.
Okay, before we get to an FBI agent being attacked with a sandwich, let's talk about this downward trend. This is 100% true. What happened was in 2023, there was a big spike in violence and crime, and then yes, the trend is going down, but the part you're not hearing about is that the average right now in Washington, D.C., as far as crime, is still considered high when you compare it to other cities in the United States.
In our city.
They're what?
You see these fascists right here in our
Fascists?
city? You fascists! Shame! 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 Shame!
Y'all laughing, but that's the truth though. We really talking real shit.
Shame!
Y'all need to do some background studying about the Federal Bar Association.
Okay, so from here, I want to point out the man is carrying a sandwich which he's about to use on the federal agent. But just to give you some context, remember, Donald Trump essentially took the gloves off from these agents. The order is simple: clean up Washington, D.C., and take care of the crime in the city.
Yo!
Back up!
Hey!
Oh! Oh! It's fucking done! It's fucking done! It's fucking done!
What's interesting about this video is that the man decided to attack an FBI agent, but there are many other agencies on the ground right now involved with this mission. But I also want to point out, the mission is not only to go after men like this who will attack you with a sandwich, it's also to educate the public. Real quick, if you haven't already, make sure to please subscribe to my channel so I can keep you guys up to date with this Washington, D.C. story. I don't want you guys to miss a thing, and I want to make sure you guys are well informed.
How y'all doing today? Y'all staying in that trouble?
Did y'all get a call or something right here?
No, so we're doing checks, keeping everybody safe down here, right? Have you heard of the federal surge that Donald Trump's putting out?
No.
Right. You don't follow like
No.
Code 3, anything like that people are putting up? All right, so yeah, Trump's got all federal agencies kind of coming together for 7 days and going out, trying to stop the violent crime, all kind of stuff. So we're out here contacting people, talking to them, right? Quality of life offenses, smoking, drinking in public, right? Can't happen outside, right? Most people know that.
I am really curious how you feel about this video. The original intention of this video, you can even see the face palm on the screen, is to try and make the federal agents look bad. Look how annoying they are. They are coming up to us, they are talking to us. However, when you read the comments on the video, it's actually the opposite response. The majority of people seem to be very happy that federal agents are trying to clean up the city, not just by arresting people left and right, but by actually educating the public on a crime they shouldn't be doing. Okay, first things first, this is a really cool shot, but what is the actual job of the National Guard? Are they really going to be patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. and arresting people?
Well, Kate, this is your first really confirmed and significant visual of the National Guard deployment and the increased federal law enforcement presence in the city of Washington. This is a series of 5 armored personnel carriers that have lined up here basically at the foot of the Washington Monument. The monument is about a block over my shoulder. You might be able to see it there. These guys are lined up here now. As far as where they're going tonight, whether they're going to patrol this area around the mall and the monuments or go to other neighborhoods, they are not saying. They're referring us to their public information people. We've tried to reach out to them, and they've not gotten back to us. So the specific mission of these armored personnel carriers, not clear tonight. Now, what we have been told, though, guys, is that the overall mission of the National Guard will be logistics, it will be administrative, but they will have the authority to briefly detain people if it comes to that.
So this seems to be the textbook answer for the National Guard. We're doing administrative roles. We're doing logistical roles. Basically what that means is we are on standby or we're in the area to make sure if you need help, we're going to be there. But this is very crucial because a lot of times the media, they love to sensationalize the National Guard. Oh my gosh, military vehicles in an area. Basically, like we have been seeing, the National Guard, they are allowed to detain you, but legally speaking, the actual arrest will be done by an officer or a federal officer.
They're, we'll just say that they're very liberal. And he says, this may sound controversial, but I'm not totally opposed to Trump's National Guard move in D.C. I know he's doing it for politics, but crime remains rampant. I've had too many friends carjacked, at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes. Quite a change from a decade ago when things were much calmer. Well, that actually sounds like the D.C. that I lived in when
Look, when MSNBC is even acknowledging there is a crime problem in Washington, D.C., then Donald Trump might be doing something right. But I do want to show you guys, there are politicians who say otherwise. This is a congressman battling it out with Scott Jennings, trying to say this is all a bad idea.
I mean, by that token, you would leave the illegal guns.
A gun becomes illegal when a violent person uses it on another person.
That's
what happens.
You need to look a little bit more into how this. We're talking about where a gun starts and where it ends. Guns on the black market. And the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act.
Republicans don't support.
Then why is Donald Trump getting rid of all the programming, all the funding in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which is the reason why the last 3 years
the issue in DC
gun violence has gone down the most we've seen in the history of this country. We still have a lot of work to do. People still feel not safe, but there's still work to do here.
I would just say this.
I still think there is a chance that we might see Scott Jennings run as a senator in Kentucky. He already has the backing from Donald Trump, but again, he's just making the point that, look, all of the tools that are being used by the criminals in Washington, D.C., it doesn't eliminate the fact that these people are still bad people and criminals, and they're still doing the crime.
I am very clear that I will work with anyone, but I will bow down to no one. And I understand where my constitutional authority begins, and I understand where my constitutional authority allows me to do. And as the commander-in-chief of the Maryland National Guard, I have the sole responsibility and the sole honor of being able to determine how, when, and why the Maryland National Guard is utilized.
So that was the governor of Maryland, and as you can see, he felt a little threatened that Donald Trump might utilize the National Guard in a way he doesn't seem fit. One thing you have to remember is that Donald Trump did throw the idea out there. If things work out in Washington, D.C., I might throw out the National Guard in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York City, and other problematic cities that need a little more help with their crime.
The polling that you showed earlier, combining people who thought crime is an extreme problem or crime is a moderate problem, was 91%.
Yeah,
so that is,
I totally agree.
So 91% of people who live in a jurisdiction think it's a moderate or an extreme problem. This is not a figment of anyone's imagination. This is not mass hysteria. This isn't, some, collective hallucination. It's real. People who live there know they aren't safe. And so I don't know, Chuck, why anybody would care whether it's a police officer, to Arthur, to your point, or a National Guardsman or a park police who also were out patrolling, apparently. I don't know why they would care if there are more eyes and ears on the street that makes them feel like if somebody is going to do something criminal or violent or untoward, there may be a greater chance that someone sees it.
So you heard that correctly. 91% of Americans not a fan of crime. However, what does this mean for people who are trying to argue against Donald Trump fighting the crime? Here are one of the arguments we keep hearing.
You've noted that violent crime is significantly down in D.C. So do you think this is really about law and order?
Anna, this is not about law and order. You know, way back on January 6th, when members of the Metropolitan D.C. Police Force and the Capitol Police were being bludgeoned by rioters and insurrectionists, it took forever for President Trump to nationalize the D.C. Guard. Here, as you said, we're seeing a 30-year low in terms of crime in D.C. The first 6 months of this year, crime's been further down. Obviously, you can always do better, which is why if Donald Trump actually wanted to help, he would release the $1 billion of D.C. taxpayer money that's being withheld by Republicans in Congress. So D.C. could hire more police and make further improvements.
I don't know how many times Senator Van Hollen has been on my channel. It's got to be about 20 times at this point. But I also want to note this. What he's saying is pretty much how a lot of these Democrats are responding. We don't like crime, but we also don't like the way that Donald Trump is fighting the crime.
And so all I'm saying is this, is if we want to have a serious conversation about violent crime, we can have a serious conversation about violent crime. And I would love to be able to share the multitude of things that we are doing in the state of Maryland, where we are surging support for local law enforcement, surging support for predictive analytics and technologies, surging supports for community groups, and allowing more supports for the mayor and the county executive and the people on the ground doing the work. And we were able to receive some really encouraging and historic results in Baltimore and around the state of Maryland. And I never once had to mobilize the National Guard in order to accomplish those feats.
I don't know how else to say this, but Baltimore quite literally is one of the most dangerous cities in the United States, and that's very unfortunate. But the point I'm trying to make is this. You have a governor who's throwing out all of these fancy words, analytics, and data, reviewing all of this. Meanwhile, Donald Trump seems to have a very easy solution. Throw more bodies on the ground, more boots on the ground to stop the crime. You already have the National Guard. You already pay for it. Why not use what you already have, especially if you're paying for it already?
And I will not authorize the usage of Maryland National Guard forces for missions that I do not deem to be either mission critical or mission aligned. And what we are seeing right now, this distraction, distracting away from the fact that that Donald Trump's policies have caused unemployment to go up, have caused people to lose their health care, has caused children to be able to lose their food benefits, and he's now using this as a tool. He's using military personnel, these citizen soldiers, as a cudgel and as a tool to be able to advance his political purposes, because if he really wants to address the issue of violent crime, he just needs to look at what we've done in the state of Maryland.
Again, what's interesting is for 90% of Americans, they deem crime as mission critical. And this governor is saying, I want to pick and choose what I deem mission critical for these National Guard members. Again, over in Baltimore, it's the fourth most dangerous U.S. city. This was posted in July of 2025. That is very high. To a lot of Americans, this would be mission critical. To the governor, I don't know exactly what's on his list for mission critical, but you would assume I would try anything I can to try and get this city under control. Maybe we have to deploy the National Guard in Baltimore.
Over the past 2.5 years, where when I first became the governor in 2022, Baltimore was averaging almost a day. Now, the homicide rate in Baltimore is nearly a 50-year low, and we have watched how the state of Maryland has essentially helped to lead the country in drops in violent crime, in drops in non-fatal in drops in carjackings.
Look, I will agree. It's great that the stats are going down, but the stats are still very high. Now, this is what it really comes down to and why Donald Trump is doing what he's doing. Yes, he wants to get rid of the crime in Washington, D.C., but a lot of people are looking at this as almost a test or a proof of concept, that if you flood a city for a certain amount of days with all of these agents, you can actually accomplish a massive task. getting rid of violent crime, getting rid of criminals. You also have ICE in the area. They're doing deportation raids at the exact same time. So basically flooding the zone, as the Trump administration likes to say. This is what we're seeing in Washington, D.C., and I wouldn't be surprised when all of this is over, we are going to see massive posters and charts of how successful this mission is if we already are up to 100 arrests. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's pretty much what's going on as I make this video. I think we're up to like day 3 or 4 right now as I make this video and what's happening in Washington, D.C., and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of those sandwich throwing accidents or people trying to get a little more frisky with the federal agents. We'll just have to wait and see. Make sure to please like the video, please subscribe so I can give you guys more updates on this. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more content coming out of Washington, D.C. Thank you guys so much, God bless, and we'll see you all later.